After
There it
you.
is. Thank
All
you,
right.
sir. All right, Scott. So what do we have in the drink?
Oh my gosh. What are we serving?
Sammy, what do we got?
Whatever you want. Whatever you want.
I will have, well, we'll see if this works. I'll have a Clase Azul with a rock and an orange slice.
You got it.
I'm
There
going
we
to do
go.
the exact same thing, Sammy.
You got it.
Arm down. Got it. Love it. Okay, here's what the first question I need to ask.
Yep.
I tried to do my best to understand what economics, engineering, design, and environmental analysis was. And I got kind of nowhere. I got a lot of like fluff on a Cornell.
Are we referring to the Cornell undergraduate experience of
Correct.
Scott?
Yeah, yeah. What was the degree?
You know, it's
What did
funny.
we
Like
do?
the things you learn over the course of your career, how are they traced back to like the things you actually studied and did? And I feel like there are breadcrumbs in one's like actual traditional education,
Yeah.
but they're no more than breadcrumbs, right? As it relates to like where we actually end up and what we
Yeah.
actually end up doing. As an undergrad, I always had an interest in both business and design, although I wasn't using that word. It was kind of like I just loved the order of things, you know? I loved using design tools, but I didn't necessarily define myself as a designer, and product design was not even like in the lexicon of much of the world, and certainly not for myself, right? Digital product design. However, while at Cornell, studying business and economics and a bunch of random English classes, literature, and whatever else, I stumbled upon this design and environmental analysis major, right?
Yeah.
And it's basically the study of how like design impacts society. And we had all kinds of really interesting classes that awakened me to just the relevance and importance of design across like every aspect of life. And from that moment forward, I was like, hey, you know, I'm going to take a design approach to everything I do in my life.
Yeah. Scott walks out of school, in his own words, he has this, I'm going to take this design approach to everything I do in my life. He ends up at Goldman Sachs.
I know, right? Like WTF.
Come on.
What do people do when they're graduating college or getting an internship in like 2001 and they want to learn about business? And especially someone who grew up outside of Boston, East Coaster. Again, like Wall Street was the only kind of path to learn and kind of cut your teeth in the business world. Joining a tech company in Silicon Valley was not really a thing in the early 2000s for someone like me. And so I went to Goldman, and I had this job. My first job was it was miserable. I was waking up at 4 a.m. to be on the European desk of a product that was based in London, but I was on the New York desk. So I was like up super, super early, which is not fun.
And of
right
course
out
you got
college.
out early.
I used to go to sleep at like 4 a.m. and now I'm like waking up at 4 a.m. It was like moving across the world. Anyways, realized pretty quickly I don't want to do that. Go to my manager, say, I'm out of here, you know, this is not for me. And she's like, well, if there's one type of job you'd want at the firm, like what would it be? And I was like, you know what, I'm really interested in how an organization is run and managed and how leaders are selected, like succession planning. Like I always had an interest in that stuff, kind of organizational design, I guess. And fortunately, there was a small team in the executive office that was being put together at the time under Hank Paulson, who was the CEO. But there was a small team that he had created under a chief learning officer that we had hired from GE at the time. And they needed a junior guy. So I was like, I'm your guy. And I stayed for 3 more years. And I'll tell you, it was such an important part of my development as a leader. I just think 3 years of working with these incredible practitioners and also experts, you know, and bringing them in and managing all these different leadership acceleration initiatives, it was just a lot of fun.
Well, I guess cheers to Goldman Sachs.
Yeah, ironically. And I had probably one of the only Adobe subscriptions at the firm.
Really?
Because I was using Illustrator, and people were like, why don't you just
What
use
is-
Excel, dude? You know, I'm like, no. Like, this has
What
to
were
be
you using
right.
Illustrator for?
To tell a story. To tell a story. Numbers and facts and lists and everything else.
Yeah.
Sort of undersell stories oftentimes.
Is the pursuit of becoming a strong storyteller part of what drew you to HBS, or was it the network, or was it the obvious reasons as to why I go to business school?
That's a good question. I always feel like business school is a great thing to do when you're like not sure what you want to do next. It's like a bridge to a question mark.
Yeah.
And you get exposed to all these different things. I didn't know what I wanted to do. But then when I left Goldman in April and I was about to start business school in September, during that period of time, I started Behance. I met my soon-to-be co-founder at the time, Matthias, and we had started to dream up a company that would help organize the creative world, which we felt was the most disorganized community on the planet. And yet these were the people that were also the most responsible for making life interesting and engaging us in every way, shape, and form imaginable. And it just seemed like creative professionals live their lives at the mercy of circumstance. They often didn't get the attribution they deserved for the work that they actually did. And I just had this, became an obsession of helping this just help attribution in the creative world.
What did you see yourself as a creative, or why did you feel like you've had so much empathy for this type of persona?
I think it was partly that I was motivated by the problem as a consumer of everything creative.
Yeah.
And a design aficionado. I think it was also part envy. Like all these people that had talent I didn't have. Motion graphics artists and video editors and and sound designers and like this long tail of incredibly talented people that I was just in awe of. And the idea is if you can't beat them, like at least host them on your platform. I don't know. So that was that was the idea.
Is there a moment where you thought that Behance made it, where you were like, oh God? Whenever
you typed in Behance into Google, you always got the response, do you mean enhance? Do you mean enhance? And so we were like a mistake, And I remember early on, we were determined to have enough link backs, enough blog posts, and enough portfolios published where Google would no longer consider us a mistake. And so lo and behold, one day in like early 2008, Behance came up as a legitimate search result. That was a moment for us. Later 2008, Beyonce became super popular. We lost it all over again, but it's part of the drill.
When you think about the yearning to tell great stories, and you think about you had a great run at Adobe, was some of that the size of the backseat and getting all those people in a direction, or what's the thing that kept you there?
Well, I think that it's different experiences, Behance and Adobe. Like, Behance, I would say, like I learned that sticking together long enough to figure it out is probably one of the greatest competitive advantages of the startup world that is seldom discussed. If you can just keep people together long enough, smart people with initiative to figure it out, like that's a great advantage. And it's really hard to do that. That's where the storytelling, I think, kicks in.
Yeah.
When you're leading at a big company, at Adobe, as chief product officer, my organization was probably 7,000 people. It's a totally different ballgame because you have to kind of become a different type of leader and let a lot of things go. But at the end of the day, you have to also say, what are the few things that I can do uniquely well that will inflect the trajectory, of this business, and I have to allow everything else, to be run by people I trust.
Do you feel like you shined more given that challenge, or the former as an entrepreneur?
That's a great question, and I would say that, how do I compare the two? I'm thinking when you ask that question, I go to like, where did I make more impact? And while I feel like I made different types of impact in both of those experiences, I would say I'm most proud of the 0 to 1, and that journey, that 7-year, that first journey. But, at Adobe, there were a lot of really different types of challenges that someone entrepreneurial had to be uniquely qualified to do. So
why do you use that word?
Because you are trying to summon a degree of founder mode to some degree, and, as the vernacular is these days. You're trying to get people to do unnatural things in a big organization. And those are the things that I was most proud of doing at Adobe, at a big company, is when I tried to push for, unnatural things, which are the only things that you can do to get unnatural outcomes.
You use the word, so I feel like I have the right to use it. Has Scott Belsky's obsession or empathy for the customer driven him into this latest pursuit to an extent become the customer at A24?
Yeah, well, first of all, I feel like the constant theme of my career has been the intersection of creativity and technology. Behance, Adobe, now A24. And so that that is kind of where I typically thrive. In terms of, I also think that storytelling, stories are these capsules for hard truths, right? The stories that we consume are the things that open our mind. I mean, sci-fi is a prototype for the future. It helps us dream and imagine the future. It helps us fear the future. It also helps us anticipate it and make it. When I meet these incredible synthetic biologists who are working with AI and biology, and you talk to them, they're like, yeah, I realized I wanted to go into this when I saw Jurassic Park when I was like 10, So storytelling plays an important role. I think it also helps us make sense of the world around us as it happens. I also think that storytelling is going through its own transformation now. I think Hollywood is realizing, gosh, like, we can't only make sequels. and yet, if a fantastic film costs 50, 100 million or more, the risk is too high to do anything but a sequel. So it's like, well, what are we going to do, right? And I would just love to be part of that solution. Also, just to be a part of a brand I've always admired and observed from afar is just really, really fun. And so to plot the future, is just at a place like A24 is just awesome.
When you think about in implications, you often write about how the winners are going to be people who really push on innovation and responsibility. It was a core tenet of your work at Adobe for the last couple of years, as all this change was happening. Do you still believe in that today?
The winners in AI?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that
or the winners on the other side of the house who are creating content through using these technologies.
On the creator side, it is irresponsible to not train yourself on the modern tools of your trade. And historically, whether you go from like analog photography to digital photography, or even like old school paper compositing to Photoshop compositing, there are periods of time where these step functions of evolution and technology created this polarizing atmosphere where the people who were curious and adopting it were in some ways in tension with the people who did it the old way and were refusing to like explore the new way.
What's an example?
I mean, those two examples, on the digital photography front, there are many photography associations of America that didn't even admit digital photographers in the early days of digital photography. Like, if you didn't use real film, you were not considered a legitimate real photographer. And of course, that now is like an insane thing.
Yeah.
But that is the way it was. And by the way, same thing with filmmaking, with traditional film versus digital. And there's always going to be a role for some of the old technology in a nostalgic way. But we also have to embrace technology as new ways of telling better and more important stories. So my compass is to be at the service of the creator. Like, if no creator wants to have new technology to pre-visualize and explore the full surface area of possibility of their character development and everything else, like, then we shouldn't use new technology for them. But if they do want that, like, I think my job and all of our jobs as makers of tools is to be at the service of the creator and help them achieve, whatever's in their mind's eye. So I think that's a great sort of recipe for the future. There are some people who just want to use technology for technology's sake, which I don't find as appealing personally.
Yeah.
But I think that so that's how I would approach it on the creator side.
The genie's out of the box now, and people are moving. Like, how do you?
Well, it's funny. I mean, let's start with the fact that content in itself is becoming somewhat commoditized. Like, anyone can make content, right?
And that's good or
I think
bad?
so. I mean, listen, like, when clothes and cars and liquor and other things become commoditized, two things happen. They become readily available to more people.
Yeah.
In mostly good ways.
If you want another drink, Scott, we can ask him.
I'm having the top shelf stuff. So
Okay,
but I think that another thing that ends up happening is that people end up craving the more scarce and meaning-infused version of that thing. I mean, look at LVMH. It is a company that only makes commodities. Shoes, like clothing,
Bags, yeah.
liquor, like handbags. They're holding companies, all, hand creams. Like, you can buy any of this stuff at the corner store for $1. And yet at the same time, they, because as humans, we seek meaning and story behind the things that we consume that are part of our identity. We end up craving like the more scarce and meaning infused version of that commodity, of that thing. And we end up buying a nice scarf or a top shelf bottle of tequila or whatever the case might be. And so, and are they, is there actually a different, a jacket keeps you cold or warm, right? Like whether it's an expensive jacket or a cheap jacket, they typically function somewhat similarly, right? I think that we're seeing the same thing happen with content now. And so I think that while anyone can now create some like mimicked version of something or rip someone's style or whatever, and I have a lot of thoughts about what isn't appropriate in that area, but I also would say that it's up to us as storytellers to raise the bar and give someone something that has more meaning. Just like everything else that's been commoditized, content I think will go the same route. And so the story has to have more story, more meaning, like more extravagant and amazing ways of interpreting the human experience. Like that's what we're going to crave more. I also think we're going to crave content that is associated with brands that do that with humans behind the story. And so I actually think that that's going to be the quote unquote rebellion of the human side.
Whether it's storytelling or becoming the curator, as you characterized, it's not something that you can go to school for. It's something often that comes with age.
Yeah, or in just life experience.
And there's no way to hack it, I presume.
I mean, it's a common conversation I have these days is around this question around taste. And if taste becomes so much more important in this world where so much of skill is offloaded to compute and accessible to everyone. Anyone can kind of make any website and increasingly make anything. So now it's like more of the taste of like, well, the decisions you're making when you make it, or what to make, or when it's done, and where to share it, and how to share it. Like these are all taste vectors as opposed to skill vectors, right? And so then the question is, okay, I agree. Taste is going to become more important than ever before. Where does taste come from? How do you teach taste? How do you educate people for taste? How do people discover taste? And I don't have a good answer other than to say that life experience, trauma, hardship, travel, lessons learned the hard way, breakthroughs, artistic endeavors, the failures and successes, the volatilities of bold creative journeys, like these seem to be the breeding grounds of taste.
Who holds taste today? Is it product? Is it design? Is it the creative? Is it the producer? Or doesn't matter?
Well, I would say that my first reflex answer is when everyone is really in touch with the problem you're trying to solve and has this kind of allegiance to what you're building, the brand and some of the prime elements that define a brand. You do start to get like a sixth sense for what's right and wrong. I do think you start to like look and be like, that's not something Behance would do, or that is something Behance would do. And I think that's kind of brand stewardship. I mean, Neil and Dave at Warby Parker, I think are also like other people I would say are good at, like I've always admired like being brand stewards of what they do and don't do. If you think about it, any brand that grows and has permission to do more things is constantly getting an influx of opportunities to extend and leverage their brand. And so you have to say no 99% of the time to just stay focused and yet alone preserve the integrity of your brand. But it's a very, it's a business of judgment, right, in terms of how to leverage a brand and how not to. So then I would say that there are certain creative directors or brand leaders in my career, including some at A24 that I've gotten to know that are, I think, extraordinarily good at knowing like what we stand for, and therefore having good judgment of all the things we shouldn't do. So that's probably very, very key.
Is it on you joined as a partner? Is it on you to conform to that or to add to that? Is that discussed?
I don't know. I'm like right now I'm like a student. It's so refreshing. I feel like it's great in your career to kind of have a steep learning curve again in a new industry. And I considered that as I was thinking about my own career about, do I go and run a software company, which is sort of down the fairway of the skill set that I've always had?
That's the obvious answer.
Right.
Yeah.
Or do I go into a world that I think needs technology desperately, right? but also has like a steep learning curve and a whole field of expertise that is new to me. And that was like really exciting for me. I feel like the only way to remain an expert in anything is to become a student or remain a student. And I feel like there was a tight tie there.
I think if you sit and analyze the breadcrumbs, it makes more and more sense in looking at the trajectory.
Hopefully. The world is changing so fast.
We're worried about AGI, or we're worried, like, what is Scott Belsky worried about?
I'm not worried about like AGI taking us over.
Yeah.
What I am worried about is just what I call the displacement speed of technology. It's just, you think the world is this, and then this happens, and then it's like, oh no, actually it's this. Oh wait, no, it's this, and this is happening in models. Models is happening in applications. It's happening in just the way business models are done. That's best practice. Like everything is just changing so fast.
Yeah.
So I get amped up because I feel like I have the stamina for it still, but at the same time, there's just a lot to figure out, a lot of things to crack. And my natural essence is to be very optimistic about the future, but very pragmatic and somewhat pessimistic about the present. And so I guess like that's my aura. It's like, oh my God, we got to figure this shit out, but oh my gosh, we're gonna figure it out eventually. Some combination of the two. We're 2 tequilas in now, so give me a break.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Sammy, I think he wants a third. I think that's what he's asking for.
I'm good,
Just a taste.
Don't waste it on me. I'm serious. I have a whole one left. Seriously. Oh my gosh.